So, what do five men dressing up like some acidic Abe Lincoln rap group, getting weather advice from a giant rat, Bill Murray, and present day politics have in common? That's right. It was Groundhog Day over the weekend, and while we all may be in for some change in the form of an early spring, things may not be so lucky for Donnie and Nance.
We're building that wall.
We're not going for the $5 billion for the wall.
We're building that wall.
We're not going for the $5 billion for the wall.
Every day we wake up to the same sound bites, except Trump isn't learning to play piano or make an ice sculpture to woo Nancy into a compromise. Hey, at least the shutdown's over, everyone's back to work, paychecks are flowing, there's enough Whoppers and chicken fingers left over at the White House to get Trump through the next election. So all is, as they say at my no impact yoga for pre-seniors class, a namaste. Redundancy aside, and no matter what party you align with, you have to admit that the snarkiness is getting incredibly entertaining.
President in order to reopen the government.
$1? $1. $1? Yeah, $1.
She just prices righted the president. She just straight up prices righted. You know, Nancy could be the first person to successfully square off sarcastically with Trump. So far, I mean, he's taken down Hillary, Elizabeth Warren, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. Remember Jeb Bush? Remember when he tried to square off with Trump? The brushstrokes, they are fluid. The surfaces sublime. It is an achievement in post-impressionism. I just wanted to see if I could put the hat and the mustache on. That was it. If you're this resolute on the wall, you must have a pretty strong, cohesive argument against it.
A wall is an immorality.
Do you hear that? Do you know what that is? That is the sound of the hypocrisy dump truck backing up. Painting walls in general with some broad brush of immorality. Come on. By the way, the broad brush of immorality, in my opinion, Bob Ross's most expressive painting instrument by far. Look, if you want proof that this is just an exercise in futility and a calculated move to aggravate the current administration, look no further than this. Speaker Pelosi said Thursday she would support a border security deal that adds what's called Normandy fencing along about 30 miles of open border. If you're not familiar with what Normandy fencing is, it looks like this. And the crazy thing, Normandy fencing was their second offer. So this is the message that we're trying to send to you border crossers. Let this be a warning. You tear the crotch of your pants climbing over that fence type thing, that's on you, amigo. We're not paying for that. So, now that we can all sleep safely at night, knowing that we've successfully defended 1% of our southern border against any kind of elderly, handicapped, rascal scooter invasion, seriously, what's the plan for the rest of it?
The positive, shall we say, almost technological wall that can be built.
Tell me more of this magical invisible wall from the future, Aunt Nancy. So, it's not an actual wall, it's a virtual wall. So, but there's some. No, there's nothing there. But it's a wall. But it's still a wall, and it stops people. Stops people. Is she talking about a force field? I think she's talking about a force field. She keeps talking about scanning cars and beefing up points of entry, which I think clearly are a no-brainer. And from what I understand, they're part of the existing proposal, right? But that's not the problem being discussed. The Democrats keep diverting the conversation away from the thousands or thousand other miles of open space that are currently exploited by thousands every month. So if Leia and Han want to push a more technological solution, I'm in. I'm down. But there really isn't one, is there? So this isn't the first time this has come up. Starting in 2006, the Department of Homeland Security invested 7 years and more than $1 billion trying to create an almost identical wall of technology at the border. They called it SBI Net. You can read it about yourself, but it was proposed as an integrated system of radar, sensors, command centers, border patrol, and some drones along the entire US-Mexico border. Essentially, it was an epic failure and a waste of $1 billion. So if you really force the Democrats' hand to offer up something tangible, they keep coming back to one concept: drones. But are drones really a feasible answer to monitoring 1,500 miles of border? I'm not claiming to be an aerospace engineer, so let's look at it through like a more practical lens. First, the best drones out there have 30 minutes of flying time, 50 for the ones that glide. So there have been logistical papers written suggesting one drone per every few miles, right, to fly loops based on speed of foot traffic. So what happens every 30 minutes when that drone needs to recharge? What, do you have a good faith timeout? Everybody remember where you were, like freeze tag for immigrants? You would have to constantly replenish like 1,500 drone stations along the border every 30 minutes, 24/7, 365. For every drone flying, you need to keep your drone charging. If you know anything about technology, also a backup. So you just doubled or tripled the number of drones needed. Secondly, you need an army to monitor all this, not just from a surveillance perspective, but technology, maintenance, flight, communication, not to mention upgrading hardware and software every time it made a leap. If you don't believe me, ask the SBI Net guys. After 7 years, Boeing engineering, and $1 billion, they made it 53 miles. And it still didn't work. Put another way, that's like training, dieting, fundraising, telling everybody you know you're going to run a marathon, and then on race day, running 0.9 miles, shitting yourself and going back to bed. Third, technology. People skim over this argument because they watch too many movies. They're like, oh, we'll arm them with motion sensors during the day and thermal imaging at night. Fucking Tom Clancy? So you have a solution that can tell the difference between coyotes, tumbleweeds, people riding ATVs. Having border police speed 20 miles down a dirt road at 3 a.m. only to find out that a gang of armed MS-13 border crossers was an Arby's bag is going to get old real fast. Gatwick was shut down for 5 hours because someone was flying a plastic toy around, and you're telling me that this technology is totally ready?
Quanergy took LiDAR technology it developed for self-driving cars and built out a high-tech virtual border wall. It can detect movement within 360 degrees and 200 meters of the sensor. The software can tell the difference between people and animals.
In financial news today, company that makes new AI technology that can distinguish between man and animal has record day on Wall Street. In other financial news, company that makes two-man horse costume buys company that makes AI technology.
A horse is a horse, of course, of course.
Unless the horse is filled with coke. Come on, kids, everybody sing along. But you can't totally blame that on politicians. That's what technology companies do. They sell you in the face of adversity. They embellish how great their solutions are, even if that means a complete fabrication of an AI component demo that looks exactly like it can make a hair appointment for you even before the technology existed. And then there's the most obvious problem. I realize that the weather on the border is often arid and mild, but you don't need to be a JPL engineer to realize that high wind and rain often grounds drones. In 2018, Amazon's answer to bad weather in the New York City area was that their delivery drones would jettison their components after detecting a problem, reducing its weight and the force of any impact. So drones would still crash to the ground during a wind or rainstorm. They would just self-destruct on the way down, so they wouldn't hurt as much when they landed on your head. Well, that's comforting. That's comforting. So that was the solution that they presented at a meeting at Amazon. You think you've had shitty meetings? Trying to be the poor bastard that got to present the exploding drones over the city that survived 9/11 to Jeff Bezos. So why haven't we seen Democrats flaunt some technical solution from Google or Lockheed or Boeing? The same reason Amazon announced drones would be delivering all of your packages to your home 5 years ago and you still have a mailman. Has technology improved since SBInet? Of course. But even those responsible who called the project a grave and expensive disappointment, they're still more willing to dive into another iteration of this dumpster fire than spend 1 penny on any Trump-sponsored idea. So is it really that they find the wall ineffective, inefficient, immoral, or unsophisticated? Or is it just a smokescreen hiding a deep political bias, just evasion, or posturing for an upcoming election? I don't think there's any question that no reasonable person wants a giant 1,500-mile-long, 50-foot-tall eyesore of a concrete wall along our southern border, or what that represents to us as a nation. I don't like fear tactics Trump uses, vilifying everyone as drug dealers and murderers, and I think compassion for good people who simply were born into some shitty situation or are willing to work hard to improve it is something we could all use a lot more of. But isn't an orderly, controlled, and fair immigration system the best way to achieve that? And more importantly, to be able to prioritize some of the problems, addressing people who are existing citizens first, who've been left behind for that long, isn't that a good idea? If you really believe in an open border and free healthcare is the right thing to do, let's discuss it. That's why we have elections. But be prepared to argue that 30 million people in a failing country in 7 of the 9 highest murder rate cities who could decide that a relatively short trip to the potential open borders and free healthcare of the greatest country on earth may be in their interests, in their best interests. I would.